Slap Shots and Hockey Goals. That is a book by Matt Christopher, probably, that you have probably never read before. Matt Christopher is my favorite. This episode is my favorite. This is episode 106, Bardown Breakdown. And we are here with the main man, Matt. Matt is in a new project with the homie Joe Boynton from Transit called Narrowcast. He was also in a great band called Aviator. And if I'm not mistaken, you were in Long Lost too, yeah?
Yep.
Wow. Look at that, man. The triple. That's the triple
threat.
That's the triple threat. So anyways, we're here and we're doing this. So what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing good, man. Finally, it's like warming up here, so I feel like spring's actually around the corner. So yeah, everything's going good.
So I went in the pool today because I live in Florida.
Yeah.
And it was 85 degrees. So I was super into it. Mikey and I do a little segment we just started. We were talking about before we went live called Only 2001 through 2005, where we pick a record from that era and we just kind of talk about it. And we picked for this, actually, I guess when this episode airs, it'll already have happened, but we picked Say Anything's Is a Real Boy.
Tom struggles with this. So, yeah, you really struggle with that.
But so we picked Say Anything's Is a Real Boy. And I actually last summer bought this pair of wireless Bluetooth waterproof headphones. So I was like, you know what? Like, let me throw these headphones on and let me just listen to this record in the pool. So that's what I did. And when you're splashing around, that record is even better. You know, it's all about the splashing. So I was super pumped about that. But, swimming in March, why not,
That's crazy because I had to listen to a record when I went snow plowing I left at 10 p.m. and I get home till like 10 a.m. And it's like we got 16 inches of snow up here.
Oh, my God.
Brutal. So, yeah, it's brutal. And I do snow plowing. So it's like, I'll just stream music the whole time. That's what gets me through the storms.
That's awesome. I mean, that's great.
Man,
I mean,
that sounds like an awesome gig. Sign me up.
That's what it is. You put the demos on too, so you can work on stuff. 2 birds, 1 stone.
Yeah, there you go. See, that's what I used to do when I was going back on Long Island. I was going to college. I would take public transit to school.
Yeah.
So I'd take the bus to the train, and I'd have usually an hour or so of travel. So that's all I would do is I would just, at that time it was my iPod video, and I would just throw that on and just listen to a record. And that's how I listened to a ton of records. I would get home, I would go into mp3.com and Pure Volume and find out about all these cool bands. And of course I was a little shitbag, so I would torrent those records. And then
and we all did. You guys LimeWire, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I used LimeWire. But then I got into torrenting and IRC and stuff like that, and found out that they're way easier ways to get records. But I definitely paid my penance for it. And when I was in my peak of record collecting, I had 1,000 records. So I think I made up for all that nonsense. But yeah, there's nothing better than that. Just throwing on a record, and the nice thing about it too is you can kind of records, they say are some are written for certain seasons. It's
True. So true, dude.
You get that summer feel for stuff, and you get that winter feel for stuff, but it exacerbates it even more when you're listening to that winter record and you're out there in the 20-degree weather, or you're listening to that summer record on the train home from school during my summer classes, and it's just it just all hits you. So but yeah, I can say that I'd never listened to Say Anything's Is a Real Boy while I was in a pool. And I mean, it's not really a pool record, but it's a fun record nonetheless. So, but anyone out there, if you go listen to a record in a pool, you won't be disappointed.
Well, not everyone's fancy with waterproof headphones, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't even, and the funny thing is they're not even that great. The headphones aren't that great, but I literally went underwater and I could still listen to them. So that was kind of cool. So, so before we jump into talking a little bit about Narrowcast, I want to talk a little bit about Aviator, because so I think my first introduction to Aviator was probably in the No Sleep vinyl subscription. When you guys put out the first record, Head in the Clouds, and I'm pretty sure I got it on like whatever that special like colorway was. I think that one that year might have been like coffee with creamer or something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But that was my first introduction into Aviator, and I remember like I wasn't really listening to records like the records that I was buying. Like I was really just more collecting them. But you know, I ended up getting the digi-download and throwing it on, and I ended up loving it. And then I think like not too long after, you guys ended up playing somewhere on Long Island. I feel like, I don't know, the connection between like all these No Sleep bands and like everyone was just, Long Island was just like a stop, like and like a second home for everybody. So
we were playing a lot with the guys from Such Gold. They were in Taking Meds.
Yeah, there you go.
They had just started Taking Meds, and that was like our boys. We toured with those guys a lot, and they were our main like go-to. And then we would play with a lot of guys from Connecticut too. Like it would be like Connecticut, Jersey, like the post-rock scene from Jersey. Mm-hmm. We'd get the like hardcore scene from Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
And then we used to play with like Manners.
Okay.
Oh man, this is like, you guys are making me think now. This has been a minute. It's been a minute. Like, yeah, this is like 2015.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. We did a tour with Rescuer, and it was a Felix Culpa we were out with.
Oh, I love the Felix Culpa, man. They're like one of my favorite bands. Woo!
Yeah, me and Joel and Tristan, those were just close friends. Like that's how Aviator used to be. We'd become really close friends with one of the bands, and we just go hit as many states as possible. And then No Sleep just helped us kind of like hit the rest of the areas we had never hit before.
Sure.
And because you guys know, it's like post-hardcore and everything, it's very niche. So you got to really establish like that whole idea of like, no, like I'm writing these songs because like I love this genre. I'm not trying to like just rip off Touche. I'm not trying to rip off Defeater.
Yeah.
Like it's like you're just trying to find your own path. And that's why the other thing too, that I think like we used to play with all those bands, and like that's the other thing I'm doing with Narrowcast. I have another project coming out a week before Narrowcast on No Sleep, called Pretty Normal, and it's me and the drummer from Aviator, Aviv.
Okay.
Me and Aviv have been best friends for over like 10 plus years now, and it's like we have that whole like guitar drummer songwriter. We just been writing songs so long, we have that chemistry. So everything we tend to lean on is like very drum and guitar heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So it all started with me and him, and this Pretty Normal band we're doing is Quinn Murphy from Verse. He was the vocalist of Verse.
Sure.
And so we just did an EP together, and that's coming out in like a couple weeks on No Sleep.
Cool.
And that was just a fun thing. Like me and Aviv just missed playing heavy music.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So we just got back in the studio and did an EP for fun. I hit up Quinn. Quinn loved the demos. He ended up recording down there, and then we ended up and recorded. We recorded with Jay and Haverhill, and did that.
Cool.
And then that was in between everything with Joe, because I started Narrowcast with Joe in 2016. I think it was summer of 2016, right before we got married. And we both loved the same bands and the same genres, and I think that's why we hit it off, because me and Joe had a mutual friend, Mike Silvano, and he connected me and Joe, and like we hit it off because like same bands, same goofy ass personality, like we love the same shit. We nerd out over, like, we're both like knee deep in these conspiracies on WandaVision, like you know, like we just like everything is just the same. So it's like we hit it off very easily. So we treated this more of like, he's the singer, he's the lyricist, he's a song, like it's like a singer-songwriter, but I'm more of the producer, where it's like I control all the instrumental side of things.
Mm-hmm.
The other approach we did was like, it all started with one song at a time. I love production, and I love the bands that we grew up with, and like,
Sure.
but I loved trying to. My whole thing with like what the scene when we grew up with, like Have Heart Verse, like all those bands that used to play in Haverhill for me, that Anchors Up venue, like you know, that's what I started. You know, the Carrier. My whole thing was like, these guys are writing songs that are just as good as the big bands, but I can see them in a group of like 25 kids. What's the catch? And then I realized that was like a production way of thinking about things. These guys are writing catchy, heavy songs.
Sure.
But for a 16-year-old, I could just see them face to face and be a part of it.
Yeah.
And as a guitarist, I was like, I could maybe do this someday. That's how it all started, and it was literally the first day of school. I went to college for audio engineering, and I met the other guitar player, Mike, and Aviv, literally in my first class in college.
Oh wow! Yeah.
We all grabbed lunch, and I was like, "Yeah, I play guitar," and I was like, "I just want to write heavy shit," and Aviv's like, "Well, I live in Salem, and I lived at the time in Georgetown, which no one knows of, which is like super more up north, like right before New Hampshire. But I had the space. I had like a garage and the land. My dad, we were renting a warehouse for our landscape equipment. So we would set up the band in this warehouse, and we could crank at show level volume till like 3 a.m.
That's excellent. Yeah.
So that was a fundamental of like how Aviator started, and eventually, you know, as we wrote more, our bass player Tommy went to college, and we got Mike, and Mike was in North Andover, and he had the studio called The Office, and that's when we started to really dive into that idea of like, let's tour. You know, we're 19 years old, like let's push it.
Yeah.
People seem to. We were surprised too, because that was the first time I started writing like songs completely all the way through, because I always needed that. I never had drummers where I grew up. Just so Aviv literally like did that thing where he sat up in my garage and he did that like test like thing, and I just heard it. I was like, oh shit. I was like, all right. I was like, this is all I needed. I've been waiting a long time, and then on top of it, me and Aviv became brothers, and like to this day, like he still lives down the street from me, and like he's been the drummer in Narrowcast for all of this live, and that was like the song that's coming out. We ended up recording it at God City because Aviv lives across the street from God City.
Oh wow, that's sweet.
So yeah, and it's like all our like Zach Weeks runs God City now. So when Kurt's not there doing the other bands, like Zach will come in, and that's where we set up with Zach and retract these 2 songs, and it'll be the song that's coming out, and then there'll be a follow-up single to follow that. So it's like an A and B type of thing.
Excellent. Very cool, man.
Yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, I just didn't. I really guess I didn't realize this, but so Long Lost was really pretty much just like Aviator plus Joe. I mean,
yeah,
right, pretty much, yeah. So
yeah, it was Joe, and he had his boy Vinny.
Okay.
Had written a bunch of demos, and then Vinny ended up. He wrote it, but he just wasn't feeling the project, and he kind of wanted to keep it like that acoustic singer vibe.
Yeah.
But like I think everybody else liked how it was turning into a full band.
Yeah.
And that's what happened was Joe was doing Warped Tour that year. Sin Forgive came out, and Joe. It's super funny, but like during the Run for Cover era, that was like my era of Joe.
Yeah.
And Aviator and Transit used to play at like burrito places in Salem. We used to play at like Howling Wolf, and like those are like the early days.
Yeah.
And so we like reconnected because it was like one of those random moments, dude. It was I was literally working, and Warped Tour was in Boston that day. I had no intentions of going. and I was just working like regular day at work, and my sister came home, and it's a family business, and I was 24 at the time, and she was like, "Yeah, do you want to go to Warped Tour?" And I was like, "Well, obviously, but like I gotta work today." And she was like, she pulled the whole daughter card. She was like, "Oh no, I'll go talk to Dad." And he came out and he was like, "No, like I'm actually good today. If you want to take off and take your sister to Warped Tour, that's fine." I was like, "Well, all right, I guess we're going to Warped Tour." And so we went, and I ended up meeting up with some of my college friends, and that's when Transit was playing, and I met up with them, and Joe was like, "Oh, I'm starting this project, and like you should just meet up, and we're trying to make it a live band, so I need the rest of the band." And I was like, "Well, I got it." And it's like the funny part is we played post-hard, like we love post-hardcore, but we like true lovers of like shoegaze and indie nerds. Have an envy for writing that type of music, but I loved writing to heavy drums. I couldn't help it.
Yeah.
And I always had that idea of trying to challenge myself by writing guitar that didn't sound like Touche or all the other ones that had been out and big at the time. I went more to roots. Like I loved Quicksand. I loved Hum.
Yeah.
I loved all those like guitar, like they would use a chorus pedal and it wouldn't sound corny.
Yeah.
Like that. So I was like, all right, that was my challenge. And that's kind of the mindset I used to go with Aviator.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, like, and it's funny because like you can sort of hear it between, Head in the Clouds and Loneliness. Like, there's like a big disparity in the way both records are written, and you can kind of hear it. Like, I feel like for me as a listener, Head in the Clouds is, like it's got its heavy moments, but it's also got its more subdued moments. Whereas the overall timbre on Loneliness is a little bit more. It's almost like washed in a little bit more. It's a little bit more noisy, which I kind of dig. In terms of the way the production is now. Is that something that like from record to record, it just as you guys grew? I mean, you're talking 3 years in between each. As you guys grew as a collective, did you guys kind of realize, you could kind of experiment a little bit more and get some of those juices out?
Yeah, so a lot of it was time and place with us. So with Loneliness, Aviv was in, so we were all going to college for audio engineering, so we had to get interns, and Aviv got an intern at this place called Barefoot Studios, and it was either Brighton or Alston. It was like one of those niches off of Boston.
Okay.
But the guy was a guitar nerd. The guy had literally 1,000 guitar pedals and 1,000 guitars and like endless amps. And he let us go in there in a weekend, and we did pre-pro all on our own, but we had organized it so well that like we went in there in a weekend and did the entire EP by ourselves. And that was the big thing with us, is like I went to school for engineering, Aviv did, Mike did, and Mike. So 4 out of 5 of us were mixing engineers. So everything we did was self-done. Like we always had like one guy controlling the main thing, but like we all knew like it needs to be at this EQ, compress this. Like we all had to say, we all did it ourselves. It wasn't until we acted like true family, like brothers, where after a while you guys been together for 10 years, you're like, all right, like we're bickering too much, so we're just gonna have someone else do it, and then we'll just critique them so we don't fight anymore.
I was literally just going to ask you that. If you have 4 out of 5 members of the bands that are all, trained and going to school for engineering, like it's got to be like a point where like, where you're like, hey man, like the drums would sound better if they were EQ'd like this, and then someone is like, yeah, no, that's dumb. Like, no, it's got to be like this, and then the other guy's like, yeah, you're both dumb. Like, we got to do this, and all of a sudden you're just like trying to write a record, and all of your energy is just going into like, well, how are we going to EQ this goddamn bass drum?
Yeah, and so we would eventually just all compromise on stuff. Like at the end of the day, we all cared the most on the actual song. So
that's good.
We would nitpick the mixing, but I think we all meant well.
Of course, yeah.
Like by the time the full lengths and like we signed when we did the whole thing with No Sleep and actually, so that was all funny part too. Is like we took advice from Joe way back in the day. It was like we just put out EPs and 7 inches until one of the labels wanted to do a full length. So when No Sleep reached out, we had actually been in pre-pro for an LP, and it was all because I was like the guy that did like the relations with Chris with Long Lost. So it was funny because I was doing and talking to Chris about Long Lost, and I went out to San Diego for a family trip, and I met up with him, and I was like, yeah, I'm in a heavy band too. And he was like, what? and he asked me to play him some demos right there. And we did it together. And he's like, yeah, dude, this is cool stuff. He's like, let me know. And it was so rough that I was like, I didn't want to show him at the time, but we went back and we finished the whole pre-pro of the album. And I started sending him like full vocal demos and like, you know, I would show him the A and B, like this is what it sounds like usually finished compared to the demo. And eventually we got this other great guy, his name was Mark Jordan, involved, and he helped consult us on like fine-tuning a little bit more of the production side of things with the vocals and, you know, just tweaking it a little to sound different. Like we started doing like more of melodic yelling, and like we started taking influence. We took a lot of influence from Pink Floyd, doing backup vocals.
Awesome.
And we just thought it would be different. Like we wanted to bring that like droney, dark post-ambient to post-hardcore.
Sure.
And that was our kind of. We thought that would be our niche in
awesome.
The post-hardcore. So, but yeah, it was Long Lost. Long Lost was with No Sleep. Then what it is I met up with Chris, and then eventually that turned into a relationship with Aviator. And it's just me and Chris have always had a very chill relationship, and that's why even when I did this fun project with Quinn and Aviv, Pretty Normal, it's basically Aviator with the vocalist of the verse, and it sounds like we're gonna let you guys. It sounds like Quicksand and all that, like tones and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So I have that, and then we did Narrowcast with Joe, and that I went for more of. I wanted to just do like Pink Floyd and Fleetwood Mac and just like nostalgic stuff that like was hard to capture with kids today. I wanted kids, you know, everything's so like A and B with structures and but then all of a sudden that, you know, Dreams blew up again because of that one guy from TikTok, you know? And it's like, and I don't know if kids made the connection to like why that song is what it is, but my wife came in, she was like, oh yeah, Dreams like blew up like another billion streams because of Gen Z. And I was like, what? Like they just found out about this song because of that video? Like that's crazy. So I told Joe.
So
like,
I have no idea what this video is. I guess I'm totally out. Like out of.
It's the guy on the skateboard with the cranberry juice.
With the cranberry. Oh, okay.
Yeah, with the cranberry juice. Yeah.
Okay.
It's that Gen Z had never heard of that song until that video.
Gotcha.
And that as a musician and like growing up with my parent, like it was my mom. My mom showed me all those bands. Like my dad was like a huge wave punk, so my dad loved The Cure, The Police.
Sure. Awesome.
He grew up, he loved like Talking Heads, Pet Shop Boys, like all that, Phil Collins. And then on my mom's side, my mom like was like Van Halen, Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, like Metallica, like all that stuff. So those are like my main roots. So sweet. I always envied that musicianship from that time period. And I wanted to do it with Joe. I was like the Beatles, all that stuff, you know? So
we're going more, I guess, like indie rock sounding on this album?
Yeah, this to me, so the stuff that's gonna come out first to me feels more of just like a, without sound corny, it's like it's an alternative, like a more classic rock, just a nostalgic feel. Like my drummer, he loves the National, Death Cab,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Phoebe Bridgers is like a huge thing for him now. Um, just like all of that very indie, straightforward music, and then guitar wise, I'm all about ambience. I've grown into like I'm a huge Daughter person now, like just the huge ambient landscape idea, the wall of guitar.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too with like the song you guys are gonna hear that comes out. That was a collaboration. So that one I actually stemmed it where me and my wife wrote the acoustic together. So it's my wife actually wrote the acoustic.
Okay.
I sat in this chair and basically guided her through it. I was like, so when she started with the verse, we got to a chorus, so I just produced it along the way, and then
Okay.
I picked up the electric, and wrote like a stem. But just the feel of the sound, I had this great friend I was trying to collab in Colorado. His name's Rob. I sent it out to Rob. Rob ended up adding the synth, the bass stem. And then another electric guitar. So then I went off of his electric guitar and rewrote mine so it was stereo. So you got, technically it's, if you wanted to landscape this as a band, you got Rob, me on electric, my wife on acoustic, Joe's on vocals, Aviv from Aviator is on drums, and then me and Aviv's really good friend Joe Campbell, he lives in Salem. He plays bass. We got him to play bass. So it was like a full, like you got like Massachusetts to North Carolina to Colorado.
Yeah.
And then what happened was we had John Mark. So we recorded our stuff at God City, and then we had John Markson because Taking Meds just did LP at God City. So John Markson was there, and he did Cheer from Drug Church. And
great record,
he mixed it, and then his guy mastered it.
It's just crazy. It, like, yes, the pandemic is awful and it's totally changed the music scene, but like stuff that like you guys are just talking about right now is stemming from all of this, like being able to work remotely and being able to like send all different parts of songs like throughout the country and like it's also changing the game.
Exactly. I feel like there's so many plus and minuses to everything, right, guys? So like the big thing I feel like I've taken away is like I feel like a lot of the bigger bands are hurting right now because they got a lot of people on tour and on staff, and all they really have right now for a platform is the internet. But at the same time, you have all these small bands that couldn't tour on that level, didn't have the funds to quit their jobs, and their only platform is the internet. So I feel, I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks that way, but it's like this pandemic's kind of created like this even playing field for music, because you can't judge a band on just seeing them live. You got to go off of what you're hearing. It's come down to the engineering and the other aspects. I feel like that's separating the pack. So I don't know. Am I weird to think that with you? You guys kind of
no, I totally agree.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the other thing about that is, I think more often than not, or maybe you first get into a band because you saw them live, or you'd never heard them before and you listen to them live, and then you go and you listen to like a studio record or an EP or whatever. But I think a lot of what happens is when you get into a band, then you're looking out for what's their next release, and then once you get their next release, you listen to it, and then you're like, oh, I can't wait to hear these songs live. So you're listening to what they've prepared for you in the context of what we did in a studio, and now you want to see how they're able to replicate it when you go see them live. And and then from going to so many shows like all of us have, like sometimes it's a little different. Like, one of the things that like, I can say is like, I'm big into Into It Over It, one of my favorite bands.
Oh my God, yeah.
And the way that their sophomore record was like, I guess, recorded, it just like, it kind of was a little soft and it wasn't as dynamic. And I don't know if that was really if that was his choice or if that was just kind of how the production happened. But I remember going and listening to him replicating those songs live, and they just had so much more depth, and they had so much more it's so much more balls. Like they were just like really like, they transitioned better when I heard them live. So, but I think that's one of the things that is going to be challenging for some people in this pandemic is you can create all of this beautiful music, which as listeners we're all really into, but as we transition, hopefully, as we transition out of this period of not having live music to having live music again, what is it going to be like to, replicate all of this like interesting studio work that's been done, with all of this extra layering and all of this? How does it transition?
Play the laptop. You press like space on the laptop, and then like.
Yeah, I guess,
dude,
right?
Receiving End of Sirens was doing that back in 2003.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
All these sound guys are gonna need jobs, so.
Yeah, that's very true, right? Yeah, so sound guy 2022 is gonna be
it's gonna be like a new part of the band, just to have a sound guy to do all the layering extras.
Yeah.
But
but you know what though? But there is something to be said though about seeing a band live and it being a little bit different than what you're expecting, from a studio record, and it gives it a little bit of charm, and it gives it kind of a little bit of authenticity, because it's like, you realize that musicians can kind of innovate their own like songs to fit their musical narrative. So it's like, you can, I'm trying to think of like, bands that do that really well. Like Death Cab is a band that does that really well, they're, wide open on record, and then when you see them live, like, they're all talented musicians, but how they kind of like move their songs out to their audiences in different ways. It's just like, well, I'm going to see Death Cab. Like, what are they going to do this time? Like, are they going to play my favorite song? Is it going to be faster? Is it going to be more developed? Like, how is it going to be? So I think that that's another great thing for listeners out there to kind of have that in their, in their bank, as you say. So, so real quick, one last question musically, and then we'll chat hockey a little bit. But so as far as Narrowcast is concerned, without saying too much or too little, I'm not sure what you can really let us know it as of this juncture. But are we looking at? Is there a full length that's on the horizon? Is one essentially written and done, and we're just waiting on a release date, or what are we looking at in terms of kind of, I guess, the future year of what is going to bring Narrowcast to us?
So yeah, I've been like, me and Joe have been just back and forth about just how it's all going to go down, and so it really started with this EP that Joe and I completed before the pandemic.
Yeah.
We have a 3-song EP that had been done. So it all started where Aviv and I had written, and I got into like the shoegaze and the indie element of things. But like me and Aviv are still drum and guitar heavy. So it has this driving force, and you guys know me, I'm all about distortion and that tone. So yeah, and then I'm a Fender guy, so I love to hear that, like when like hearing the strings actually being hit when you're playing.
Yep.
So we had written like 20 something demos, and then I don't know why, but we just had the time, I think, and because we were kids, it was just so long ago, but we went to the studio where Joe recorded Listen Forgive. And at the time, we had a good relationship with the owner, and he let me stay at the studio for a month, and we recorded 10 songs.
Okay.
with the entire intention of a different singer at the time. But things just didn't work out, and these songs had just been like hanging with me. And at the same time, though, it was the first time I had written music where I was like, oh, I like what I'm like. If I would go see this band and pay for tickets, like I was writing into the genre finally that I was like a fan of my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Hardcore I'd been a fan of for a section of my life, but like I was tapping into that world I was telling you guys about with Fleetwood Mac and stuff, where just a long time fan.
Yeah.
And Joe had just been not doing anything for a while, and I reached out to him. I was like, you want to do something together? I got like 10 demos to work with. And that's how it started, because I had written, literally, I had everything, the drums, bass, guitars, synths, just everything was done. And he was like, yeah, so we started writing, and we were breaking it down, and the whole idea of us was a concept album. Like, I wanted to be like Pink Floyd. I was like, I want to bring back a 6-song EP that had skits and a concept, and just like I wanted to combine like elements of like hip hop that had like the interlude stuff and just weird stuff. And we were like, that's our whole mindset going into it. And we were writing, chopping it, because I'm all about just like, I want the best of the best and trim the fat. So what happened was, by the time it was said and done, Joe had got married, and him and Amanda moved to North Carolina.
Yeah.
So in order to do it, we had to continue remotely, which I had planned on. I was like, no problem. Like, I don't care. And I was like, and so my whole plan was to fly out and just set up like a home studio, like Blink self-titled there. And I was just like, let's just do it in your house. I'll set it up and I'll bring the vocals back to Massachusetts, and I know people to mix it. Fine, that's fine. Literally the day I was supposed to fly, I got the flu. I literally got the flu to the point where I was in the fetal position, and my wife had to bring me to the hospital, so I had to cancel the flight. And I remember telling the people on I told to get my refund on the plane tickets, I told them that a snowstorm happened and a tree fell on my house. And and they were like, oh yeah, no problem, sir. Like, this happens all the time. I was like, what? And so I had to stay home. So I was like devastated. I was like, oh my God, I was like literally this close to getting this done. So Joe's good friend Adam from Taking Back Sunday stepped in, and Adam offered to record and produce all of Joe's vocals at his house.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so we were like, okay, let's do it. And then we started all talking, and then all of a sudden, Joe had 3 songs done with Adam, with like all the tracks I needed, everything I needed outlined. I gave him like a whole itinerary of how I wanted it, like as if I was there, and Adam kind of just took it and ran with it and added his touch to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wanted. Like, I wanted Adam to add his touch to Joe's vocals. Like, it was finally like Joe was working with, and they did it all in Adam's house. So like, it was all done with like ease and no pressure. Like, we didn't have to worry about that studio pressure.
Yeah, of course.
And then so Adam got to dissect his melodies, his lyrics, like everything. They just got to do it all together. So we did these 3 songs. And after the 3 songs were done, the pandemic hit, and it's like we had the artwork, everything's pretty much there. So we wrote a couple more songs, and then these songs was like everything we had built over the last 4 years cultivated into one final sound.
Yeah.
So these 2 songs kind of represent the entire last 4 years. But we had these 3 songs done before the pandemic. So we have, the way it is like, we're going to drop the first single March 12th. And that's the one that we believe is like represents the band to the fullest.
Excellent.
And I'm just happy about it, because I have all of my dearest friends, like, and my wife is my wife recorded the acoustic for this song.
Yeah.
So it's like, I recorded the electric. It's like, I got everybody on this one, so I'm proud of that. Just that whole remote. And then the next one, will come out, which is just me and Joe completely, and then I had Aviv do drums, and our friend Joe in between did bass again, and Aviv and Joe Campbell did bass for the whole thing, because they're my guys, they're my go-to guys as a band.
Mm-hmm.
And after those two songs are done, we decided to do, which will come out eventually. And that's the cool thing. Like, we're keeping this indie, so I don't mind telling you guys how this is all gonna go down.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna do like an acoustic series of hardcore covers. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, but it's like as if Slow Dive did it.
Okay, so, but I'm into that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like we'll have, I don't know if I want to give away the songs right now, but we have a couple, and I've already recorded the first one at God City. I did it in a day with Zach, and then and Joe ended up doing the vocals with his friend Gage in North Carolina. So it's like we'll have the two singles coming out. Then we'll have we have an acoustic kind of full bandish hardcore cover that's like indie coming out, and that's kind of the series we're gonna do. And then I feel like and the way I want it to work is after that we'll drop the EP.
Cool.
That EP I'm definitely most proud of. We had a lot of great people a part of that one. Once like I was telling you how Adam helped Joe finish the vocals for that. Mm-hmm. We got it all back. Aviv was able to consolidate all the files. We went through, edited, did it basically all the way. But Aviv had a great connection out in Los Angeles. His name's Mark. And Mark's like, oh my God, I didn't know who this guy was. So I Googled him, and he literally looks like Doc Brown. He's like, that mad scientist look from LA, but he's been in the game for so long. Like, he did Spinal Tap.
Oh, wow.
He did Fleetwood Mac. He did U2. He did David Bowie. Like, mix and mastered a lot of the stuff that we all grew up on.
Yeah, absolutely.
He hasn't done a ton of stuff recently, but he's done a lot of movies, and he's done a lot of like those like 80s and 90s and 70s bands that like we grew up on.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't know was he like mixed us that way. So it's hard to explain. It's just something you guys will have to hear when it comes out.
Hell yeah.
But it still sounds like Joe, but the way the vocals are mixed and the drums, and like it just has that nostalgic tone to it that I can't put my thumb on. But if you looked up this guy's credits, you'd be like, okay. And I think he used a lot of analog gear on it. It's just the way it sounded. Like some of Joe's vocals sound like that Phil Collins No Jacket Required era. Like,
yeah, that's great.
He's got that real analog space echo. Like, and then I mess with Joe, but that's my favorite era of Joe is like Stay Home. I grew up with the Stay Home era of Joe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was the first show I saw was The Carrier, and it was Transit's very first show with Joe. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think it's so funny how full circle things go.
Yeah.
But with Stay Home, I like when Joe's vocals are doubled. Like, I know with his other his later stuff, they did the whole production with like harmonies and singing stuff. But like, part of me likes that raw, like you're just doubled the whole time. And we went a little effects heavy, but like tastefully to the point where it doesn't take away from the song. It's just, you guys will have to hear it, but I feel like that's the best way I can describe it right now.
No, excellent, man. We're definitely really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be interesting to hear, you guys really both stepping out of the narrative that we're that we're used to. Like for your guitar playing, I'm used to Aviator being frenetic and loud, and so to kind of see it be maybe that way but in a different context is cool, and getting to hear Joe in a different context is going to be great. So definitely really looking forward to it. So just to shift gears a little bit, and kind of drive the knife in just a tiny bit.
I gotta ask this, Tom.
I
need to know about that hockey stick. And
I knew it. I knew you guys are gonna ask about that hockey stick.
And that's the beautiful thing about doing video. I wish that we've always done video. Like, we just recently started doing it. And if we didn't do video, we wouldn't know about this, like, super vintage wood, no curve hockey stick.
So you guys are gonna die, and I'll even find it. My mom was even like making jokes like, "Do you have the hockey stick?" I was like, "Yeah, Mom, I got the hockey stick." But up here, you can see
Bobby Orr. Holy shit!
Wow.
So this is from my uncle, and my uncle used to go to the Garden, and this is actually signed by the entire team in 1970 when they won.
So sick. That's great.
Wow.
So yeah, it has Phil Esposito. It literally has all the. My uncle literally got the entire team in 1970 to sign this stick. I don't know how he did it, honestly, but he gave it to me when I was a little kid, and I've had it literally since I think I was like 5.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's my prized possession, and that's why it's funny because I grew up playing hockey. I played hockey for like 9 years.
Okay, awesome. So I got a question then, because you said you're like in the Salem area, or like you've spent time in Salem. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was like college years. I was in Salem. I grew up in like Georgetown, which is like more like Haverhill, Newburyport, like right before New Hampshire.
Okay, just because friend of the pod, Joe Acuity from Ice Nine Kills, he's from Salem, and so is Spencer, the lead singer, and Spencer played like pretty competitive hockey. So I was just wondering if you ever crossed paths with him, since you were kind of in the same area, but. Sounds like you were in a different area when you were younger.
Yeah, I was in a different area. But the funny part is, just because I'm in the North Shore, so I own a landscape company. I was telling you guys that I take care of like, oh God, I wish I could tell you guys his name, but I take care of one of the New York Islanders' houses. And like,
what?
Yeah, and like, you know, you guys, I've been dying to tell you guys this story all day, but. You want to hear like the best high school story?
Hell yeah.
So, of course.
So I worked for like a florist greenhouse, like a landscape supply shop, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I lived literally in the town that was Georgetown that touched Boxford, right? So Boxford was like the rich area that all the customers were in. And it's like Middleton too, and it's like that's where all the Patriots live, that's where all the Bruins live, that's where all the guys live. And when I was like 16, I worked for this place called Noonan's, and I used to deliver manure to Ray Bork's house.
Unbelievable.
Like I literally deliver shit to Ray Bork's house.
Well, he was getting some shit on Spittin' Chicklets this past week.
Oh, dude, he's such a local legend. Like, I literally see him at the bar. I think, like, well, before the pandemic, he used to hang out at this bar in Danvers called the 44. And it's, like, where all the, like, landscapers meet up to, like, have beers and talk shit. And, like, and it's, like, that's Ray Bork will just, like, pop in once in a while and just chill with all the guys. It's wicked funny.
That's awesome.
Man.
Yeah, it's just like it's wicked random, but it's like we'll get guys like that. I've heard of like other guys too, and it's like I played hockey with his son. I used to play hockey with his kid.
Right?
Yeah, it's been so long, but he had a younger son that was literally the same age as me, and we used to our teams would play each other all the time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure his son is like he was when his son was still playing, just like a AHL superstar. He was like always leading the league in points when he was playing, like on the Hershey Bears. I think he was on the Hershey Bears for a long time.
I actually heard of that team before, so like I think that you're right. He used to just play like all kinds of sports, but yeah, when it came to hockey, yeah, his name definitely carried it too. And like,
oh, and another thing is, you know, like that one Winter Olympics where they weren't allowing NHL players to go. I think it was Sochi. Chris Bork was on that team. Or no, the South Korea one. The one.
Yeah, see, like just insane stuff like that. And I had a lot of friends too that used to come down, or no, they wouldn't come down. They'd go up to Canada because we played all the select teams from like Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. Like there were some serious teams. I remember too because I came from Haverhill and stuff, and we were like kind of the hood, and like our team would fight each other more than the other teams, and like we'd go up, like they would book us for like a tournament like Waterville Valley, and we would just get so smoked. It used to be it used to be so funny. But that used to be my early years. And then it was funny, like I used to play for Pentucket, and it was like a tri-town type team.
Okay.
And then after that, it ended up dismembering because I think too many like kids, we used to literally just fight each other all the time. So they're like, okay, we need to switch up the towns. So they put like Georgetown with Amesbury and stuff. And that team for me was like, do you guys remember like Pee Wees and Bantams?
Mm-hmm.
And like that was when I played for this team called the Maples. And that was next level because my coach, his name was Jim Bell. He was like best friends with Bobby Orr and all those guys. He was like a part of their crew. And it was like the first time I had like a real coach. And we won like both years in a row all the way to the championship. This guy was like next level. Like this guy was so old school. He used to get in our faces on the ice and scream, and like you could feel the spit coming through your cage. and then oh man, just like fucking the sprints back and forth on the ice at 5 a.m. till like I remember like one of the defense guys that were bigger would be like throwing up on the sides. Oh, this guy was like so brutal, but those are some good memories.
Now, how long did you play till like high school age or?
Yeah, so no, it's funny. I played up into high school, and what happened was in high school for Georgetown was such a small school that it became all bureaucracy. So like it didn't even matter how good of a player you were. It was like, oh, if you're not a senior, you're benched. And I was like, what? And then like the seniors, some of the seniors were like your stereotypical high school guys, like they were just not good dudes. So like to see them get that privilege, and like from where I came from with the like crazy coach yelling in my face and stuff, I'm like, and then the coach for the high school team didn't even care. He literally cared like a 30-second of much as my last coach. And like it just like crushed me. But you know it was funny, it was like I put the stick down and I picked up the guitar.
Oh, yeah. There's so many of our guests that are pretty much got the same story.
Really?
Yeah. Lot played until about high school, and then just made the complete shift from hockey to music.
Well, that's what it was. Is in high school, my best friend at the time, Matt Cronin, showed me Have Heart, Ceremony, Outbreak, Hammer Brothers, and then we started going to those shows. And then literally the first show I went to, I was done. I was like, because I just went from like such a crushing moment with this whole hockey experience. Like I literally just dedicated 10 years, and I wanted to go down that road. I wanted to finish high school, go to college. Like I wanted to do the mom and dad route. And it just like, I just first saw like this, no, I don't want to deal with it. So my first hardcore show, I was like, this is what I've been missing. Like, this is what I wish I was getting on the ice.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I made the transition.
Okay, and I guess I want to just hint on more of that Boston Bruins talk, because I'm assuming that you're a big Bruins fan, big Beast
yes,
fan.
Sir. Yep. Like I love the era of PJ Stock, guys. Like that was like the time too when they used to do that cool stuff. Like I got to play. My team played at the Garden. They did that cool thing where they let it was like my team, and then it was the playoffs. So they picked like my team, and then they had, I think it was Masco, and Masco was like Topsfield, Boxford, and Middleton, and we got to play each other. And then we got to use the locker rooms. So as we were undressing, all the teams are coming in. So we got to meet all the guys. But, oh my God. Yeah, I went to so many games during that era, too.
Yeah, you know, the Bruins weren't so great in your early years. You know, obviously Ray Bork picked up and left ship to go to Colorado because things were not great in Boston at the time. And then, you know, it did get better once you got Chara and built around, you know, his work ethic, and he made the team grittier again. And then obviously you got those cups, man.
So what happened, just because I grew up playing hockey, it would come in waves for me. And like that wave, like I'll never forget that year that it was everybody won. It was like the Bruins won, the Celtics won.
Yep. Patriots won. Yeah.
Dude, the atmosphere around here when that year happened was like, it was so cool, but it was so weird. It felt like it felt almost weird that we were winning that much, because people we kept celebrating, and it was like a parade. And it was funny because people would get so jacked up and excited, but at the same time, people would be like, "Is this rigged?" Like, you know, it's just like I just remember, and I even all the parents too, because that's how you know it's like when the parents start making jokes about it. But what a year that was. That's when I started getting back into it, and like, you know, I tried to skate again, and like that's the thing, like there's this place by where I live called Pingree, and apparently there's like a couple ex-Bruins players that play pickup games there. So like one of my customers he actually offered me last summer, he's like, if you ever want to come and just like shoot the shit and do that, he's like, just hit me up. It's like, yeah, maybe I will.
Yeah. Hell yeah, dude.
It might be fun to dust it off, you know?
Oh, absolutely. When I moved home after college, and it's really kind of how this whole podcast came to be. I moved back to Long Island, and, you know, we were kind of all in that same age, like, you know, 23, 24, back home, and you're like, shit, like, I can't believe I'm back home. Like, I was away at college, and now I'm back to this place that I was, like, just so anxious to get away from.
Right.
And finding a group of guys to play hockey with is kind of what made it halfway decent, and ended up playing with the guys in Envy on the Coast, and that's kind of when I realized how like much of a crossover there was between the alternative music world and hockey. And we played hockey for a few years on Team North Korea, and those years were fantastic getting back out there.
That's so cool, man. That's cool too that you found the connection between like the music we all like and hockey, because that was like so cool when I found out about you guys, how niche it was. Like it was like hockey and like music, and then it was like hardcore and punk, and I was like, yeah, there's definitely like, because that's true. And it's funny that you guys said like a lot of guys like me made that transition, because like, yeah, it was a lot of my friends, like a lot of my friends that were in the hockey world, we were the guys that didn't get along with the football players and the basketball players.
Yeah, of course.
So we liked, and we were and you know what it was, is if you break it up at a small school and the tables, the way it used to be, the hockey table was a skate punk table. And like, it just like, and it's funny now I'm thinking about, it's like, it's just all, and like all the guys like went in the locker room, the music we used to blast.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But if only, I was
if only the Canadians did the same.
Yeah, if only the NHL players listened to better music, because it's like all the Russians listen to like weird house and trance, and like all the Canadians listen to like
country,
like terrible like Canadian country, and like maybe Nickelback if like they're lucky. Dude, I don't know.
Can you imagine just like getting in the zone, and then like in your headphones it's just freaking trance, like it's like, and like you're about to go out for like a game, like, yeah, this is jacking me up, dude, like let's go. It's like no, I know something works for everybody, but like
but still, I mean, you know, I don't know who that works for. I mean, like
country too, like
yeah. I mean, it could be worse. You know, you could be, I guess, listening to like Limp Bizkit's Break stuff before you do anything ever in a day. Like
that's the kid that's got dad issues.
Yeah, that's got big time daddy issues, man. But you know what? I mean, you know, it's tough to knock it, you know, because Canada, and especially a lot of these guys up north, it's so much different because like they like a lot of these guys like they don't give a shit about music or they don't give a shit about anything because all they care about is playing hockey.
I know.
Like that's it. Like it's like since these guys are like 2 or 3 years old, they're born and bred to be hockey players, and so you know like that, and that's like you know the criticism of a guy like John Tavares that like we all heard when you know back when he was on the Islanders, you know, Mr. No Personality, but like he's one of those quintessential kids who like he has no personality because like hockey is who he is. Like it's just hockey, and like you know you're lucky that you occasionally get a guy like an OV, you know, who like has some personality outside of just being a hockey player. But you know, at the same time though, you know, these guys are just like so much different than any other athlete because all they want to do is win a championship. You know, like it's not like they're going to the place that's really going to pay them the most. It's not like they're going, you know, they'll go to a shit team just because they're willing to, you know, to get paid 30 million a year. Like they want to go, you know, to the place that will give them the best opportunity to lift, you know, the cup that they've been dreaming about since they can remember what their dreams are. So, you know, and I think that's what makes it so interesting. And I think that's why there's such a parallel between alternative music and hockey is because when you think about diehard hockey players and hockey fans, it's all about the cup. And like, and with alternative music and stuff, I think all of it is just really all about the gig. You know, it's all about like getting out there and playing because that's what you love to do. Like writing music is awesome, and you know, like, you know, the business side is means to an end because you want to get paid so you can shovel a little bit of food in your mouth and get to the next place you're going to go. But you know, it's all about the gig, you know, whether it's in front of 50 people or 5,000 people. And for hockey players, it's all about the game. It's all about, you know, the ice. So I think that huge parallel is there.
That's between so true, both. Dude.
Yeah.
That's like anyone that has any kind of on that level of sports, like it makes, you're right. I've met people like semi-pro football players or just even people that like ride horses and stuff. It's like they're so dialed in on just that they just don't like music to them is just like whatever. It's like it's like a snack. Like if I have it, it's cool. If not, whatever.
Yep.
And that's just where to me it's I think I just never been like that. Like I just grew up with my mom would just slap me if I treated music like that. You know, she's still a huge part of it all. But yeah, man, I totally hear you on that.
Yeah. So I guess you know, to close it out since we have been going for about an hour or so, I guess we hinted at the singles that are coming out, but what else do you guys have planned for Narrowcast? Are we doing live streams? Are we doing merch? Like, you know, you guys are vets in this scene, so you know, what do you got cooking?
So plan is we're gonna drop the single that'll come out on all the platforms, digital, VIA, pretty much everything online. Cool. That'll be the first couple singles. You know, build an audience up. Just want to let everyone know we're here now. The real plan is to press ourselves. We want to do a pre-order for the EP. So that I'd actually like to put out as a 7-inch. So the EP, I want to plan on doing that later in the year. So I want to drop these singles, let everyone know about the band. You know, down the road, press the EP once we release that. That way we can have a pre-order and let everyone know what's going on. Then ultimately, we will be live streaming everything. Like I'm working on video content with Joe for all the platforms. We have a great social media publicist now. His name's Justin. He's helping us create all content. So we kind of did a different approach. Like instead of just building like a straightforward band, we built a team. I'm more into the production, musicianship, finding the artists to make each song what it should be. I've been treating each song like a different painting. Like what artist could like make this painting more of what's in my head.
I love that.
And then I'll go out and find those artists from all of my past years. So like a new song I'm working on right now. No, Nina. I'm trying to combine my Pretty Normal song. Right now I'm writing a song with Joe and Quinn. So
sweet.
Combining, you know, Transit verse and Aviator.
Love that.
And making that a Narrowcast song. So it's like each Narrowcast song is like a different project, but it has that same sound. And that's where I think I come in because I keep the sound consistent.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there'll be live content online. We're going to make videos with Joe. So there'll always be content streaming. But I really want to press a 7-inch for that EP. And then what I would like to do, we got like 4 more songs pretty much there.
Okay.
You know, like I told you, I'm working on that one with Quinn and Joe. I have like 3 more in the works, plus a couple, like I told you guys, we're doing a hardcore series of acoustic covers. So that'll all be coming out. And if all that goes well, I think I was telling the guys, like my end goal is to get to a 12-inch, but I'm very much about this project being independent. Nothing against labels, like they've always helped me out and stuff. It's just I want to see what we could do as a team on our own. And so I feel like, you know, if everybody really likes this and responds well, if the 7-inch goes well, I would do a deluxe where we take everything and put it on a 12-inch.
Sweet.
Yeah. I've already laid it out to do that full. So because the EP is a concept record, there's an overall aesthetic to the entire project where if we did do a deluxe record, it could be an entire concept. And that's where we've tried to make it like all connect. Like, you know, I love those bands. So like the artwork connects to the song, connects to the story, connects to an overall vibe.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing, like having just 2 guys in the band, the creative control, you can really start to like dissect those different elements of the art. So that's what we try to do with this project. It's all about just the aesthetic meeting the music, meeting everything, just overall strong.
Awesome. And it's so ambitious, and I love it. I just think it's such a cool thing. So really can't wait for the single to drop. And to see what's on the horizon next and how it all ends up developing. You know, you guys are all super talented, and, you know, having you guys come together like this, you know, is just a huge treat for people who have been following you guys musically for all this time. So we really appreciate
that.
Yeah, of course, man. And we so appreciate the time you've taken to, you know, kind of chat with us and give us a little bit of perspective about, you know, how you came up and, you know, Aviator and Long Lost, and, you know, all these questions that I've never gotten the opportunity to ask, and well now I freaking did. So one last question for you. Is that like an elephant behind you?
Yeah, this is Boomba.
Oh, it's Boomba.
That's
all right, sick.
Yeah, that's my. So funny story with Boomba is when we moved to Beverly, me and my wife got a TV, like wooden entertainment center.
Okay.
And we bought it from Bob's Discount Furniture.
Sure.
And not to hate, but they screwed that shit up like 8 times. And
as they do.
They literally like kept bringing a TV center, and like an entire side would be just like smashed in. And I'd be like, guys. And they'd just be like, we're sorry, man. And then I was like, so I actually ended up going to the store, and I was like, yeah, if you guys don't like give me something, I'm never coming back.
And
so
they gave you that elephant?
I pointed to the elephant, and
I did not expect such an awesome story behind that elephant.
So have you so I presume you guys have both seen Talladega Nights before? This is literally, that mirrors that story where he's just like, I told him, man, you know, give me that giraffe, and, you know, he did. He gave him right to me. So that's like literally, like, I just imagine you just being like, guys, you've screwed this up so many times. If you don't give me that elephant right now, like, shit's going down. And they're like, you can have that elephant. You could do it. If we're cool, you can have that elephant.
I was in Saugus and I walked in. I was like, if you guys don't give me like one of these animals, like I'm just never coming back. And he's like, well, just take one, man. And I literally just took the elephant up over my shoulder and just walked out.
That is such a great story. Oh man.
My wife, she's like, you're crazy, but she's like, but I want to name it Boomba. And I
There
was
you
like,
go.
I was like, all right, babe, like if that's
Dude, if you'd have known in advance that like these Bob's employees were such pushovers, you should have just been like, guys, if you don't give me like at least one of these cash registers, like I'm never coming back. It would have been like, take the cash register, man. It's fine.
I should have told them and never got my TV entertainment center. They probably just gave it to me for free.
Dude.
So
that's
funny.
like a total Wayfair move, man. Wayfair.
Oh yeah.
Wayfair is one of those places that like if they ship you something and like a piece of it's broken, instead of them being like, okay, we'll ship it back to us, they're just like, donate it or do something. We'll just send you another one. And you're like, what
Dude,
the fuck? Like,
I have
really?
an actual real story with that. So when we first moved into this house, we ordered a futon for like one of our guest bedrooms that we were like, in case someone comes to visit us. And I open up the door when it was supposed to be delivered, and there's this huge fireplace, like one of those electric fireplaces on the front porch of my house. And I'm like, I can't even get this in the house. Like, this is ridiculous. So I call Wayfair. I'm like, hey, you need to come and get this thing. And like, it's too heavy. I can't even get it in my house. Like, this is ridiculous. And they're like, no, just keep it. And I'm like, I don't want this thing. It was like harder for me to get rid of it. And I eventually was like, you know what? I'll put up on Facebook Marketplace, and someone came like the next day and just bought it from me.
There you go.
Funny. It's just crazy how much they're like willing to just like waste instead of just like making sure stuff doesn't get broken.
But I mean, you know what?
But you got an elephant. You got Boomba out of it.
Silver lining is you got Boomba, So
wants a tambourine for us.
There you go.
Like, I just show you. You guys are actually in my studio right now. Actually, I record all the guitar and stuff in here.
Love it, man.
Yeah, man. I'm super excited. I'll definitely keep you guys in the loop as soon as stuff drops. All right.
Hell yeah,
absolutely, man. So from all of us here, we again appreciate you just taking the time to be with us and chat with us. We're super excited for Narrowcast and for everything that you guys got going on. And I think the big thing here that just makes us so excited, like I said, is just hearing some musicians that we love get into a project that's just very much different. It just kind of like, it just like lends that little sugar on top, because it's like, now we get to hear like a whole different side of you guys than we're used to. So super pumped on that. And hopefully, the Islanders have been beaten up on the Bruins. I'm sorry about that. I mean, not that sorry about it, but I mean, we got to do something, because we, other than
it's been literally years of them beating up on us. So
just wait. As soon as the crowds come back, the Bruins will come back. Just watch.
There it is. That's it. takes a little bit of that sweet magic. Exactly. Matt, dude, it's been such a blast. I hope you have a great night, and we're super stoked. You have a good one, okay?
You too, guys. It's great talking to you guys.
Thank you, sir. Adios.
See you later, man.